have not lost consecutive games in their brand new billion-dollar building all season long. Continuing that trend tonight means tying up their second-round series with the Celtics at a game apiece. Chris Webber is courtside in Milwaukee for Game 2. There he is right there, and you'll see him and the broadcast at the top of the hour on TNT. Webb, the Bucks offense failed to score 100 for just the 5th time all season long. Obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo struggled inside. The three-point shooters didn't do their jobs outside. They work hand in hand. What is the key for all of it to work better tonight?
Well, to get Giannis going, and these are the playoffs, and so not only did they have their worst game of the year, but they were 30 points behind their playoff average of about 121 and 20 points behind their average of 114, the third highest ever in Bucks history. And so I expect them to try to get out and get the pace. Giannis is great when he's playing downhill. And then Giannis is going to have to trust some other guys to make some shots because they're building a wall, they're corralling him, and they're making adjustments to what teams didn't do during the season. They're guarding him with the center and Al Horford, and then coming in with Baines. And so I think it's upon Giannis to grow during these playoffs, to figure it out. And even though he made 3 threes last game, he cannot rely on that this game. He needs to find a way to get in the paint. 17 points in the paint, only been done with Shaquille O'Neal, since Shaquille O'Neal, and so they need to get him to his sweet spots.
But it was also the first time the Bucks have allowed a team to shoot 50% since early February. Celtics haven't been an elite offensive team over most of the season. Why were they clicking so well in Game 1?
Well, I just think that they've set their mind on playing together. Not that they were bored during the season, but they were figuring out who they were. And they were getting Gordon Hayward involved back into play. They were trying to find out how Kyrie fits in with this team. And so I think it was a learning process for them as a team. But I tell you what, defensively, the Bucks couldn't handle their pick and roll the other night. And that's what I'm looking forward to. I talked to Coach Bud before the game, and he said he's not making any adjustments. Okay. But they better make an adjustment in effort and on the defensive end, specifically in the pick and roll, where Horford is such a great shooter wide open. But even more importantly, if you try to just put a Band-Aid over it, he's a great passer as well. So looking forward to see how they try to stop the pick and roll of the Boston Celtics tonight.
Hey, Chris, I want to go back to Giannis for a second if we can. He took 21 field goal attempts in game number 1, had 2 assists. And I'm wondering, this game, do you think that maybe he comes out and plays a different role early on, trying to draw those defenders, but giving the ball up early on to try and get his teammates involved by making shots?
Yeah, Coach. I mean, you know this game backwards and forwards. I would hope that that's what they would do, but they have to put Giannis, I feel, in the post as well. And when they put him in the post, it allows him to play point guard out of the post. And I don't mean traditional Shaq back to the basket, but what I mean is that being a guy that played in the post, you can see the double team before you dribble. When he's at the top of the key, he's already into his dribble. So when he goes into his spin move, when he goes into other things, even though he's trying to get other guys involved, you're giving the defense a chance to get their hands in, to come help. And for me, I'd like to see him stationary at that free throw line or in the post area, where that one step of explosion is such a threat that the defense may not be able to get to him as quick as possible. And then he has the option to score or to pass, but he needs to get guys involved.
C. Webb, what member of the supporting cast from Milwaukee do you think will have a bounce-back night tonight?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I love what Ilyasova did, trying to attack the boards, and also I love what Nicolo did. And he spreads the floor, and so I hope that they keep those guys involved a little bit more. But you're going to need Bledsoe. He has to step up. Bledsoe has to not only control the pace, but play defense. And I think, not that they're wearing him out, but I think Kyrie is such a tough guard that maybe it's taken away from him a little bit on that offensive end. So I think they're going to have to do it by committee, especially with Brogdon being out. And so definitely would like to see Bledsoe become more involved. And I also think it's too much pressure on Cogniton. Pat, he went 2 for 10, and I think that you have to maybe switch up a couple of your sub patterns early, because the one great thing about Boston is they're all like size. That means that they can switch, and all they have to do is communicate, but they're never in a defensive mismatch. And so I think they're going to have to do it by committee, but most importantly, hit their open shots.
Webb, the Cavaliers' version of Kyrie Irving was basically a scorer playing alongside LeBron James. He talked a little bit about his evolution as a game manager, and he had 11 assists, which tied his career high in Game 1. What have you seen from him as a Celtic so far that is encouraging in terms of that evolution we talked about?
His killer mentality. The fact that sometimes when you're a great organization like the Boston Celtics, the best part about it is that your organization just being great puts pressure on great players to be at their best. And Kyrie always talks about wearing that Celtic jersey, what it means to him to be in one of the best sports towns. And I think he's embraced the moment. He loves the fact that they have such a crazy fan base, and this is his chance to prove that he can be 1A on the team. And so I think all of those things help his mentality, and then therefore he pays much more attention to detail. He's a lot more selfish when he needs to be, and he's unselfish when he needs to be. He has that balance, and that's what I love, the balance that he's been playing with.
Hey, Chris, you know, sometimes I look at you during the course of the game, and I see pain on your face. Is there anybody that's sitting by you that is annoying you, I mean, that you perhaps not have to deal with?
Well, you know that Marv admires you so much, Czar, that he pulls out his telestrator and actually he imitates you during the breaks, and he's drinking his coffee and he just told me to say hello to you with his fist right now. So I'm relaying a message from Marv to you right now, Coach.
I like that we can use live TV so Czar can communicate with Marv. That's fun.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what we're here for, ultimately.
That's
Chris
what it's all
Webber,
about.
We'll see you at the top of the hour. Enjoy it tonight.
Thank you very much. I'm jealous of your beard, man. I'm jealous of that woolly mammoth beard. Looking good, man.
You know
Looking
what? Give
good.
yourself a couple of weeks. You too could have the woolly mammoth beard.
Yeah, a couple months.
Or that, yeah. All right, Chris Webber with us from Milwaukee. What would change for the Bucks tonight if somebody other than Giannis just gets hot, right? I mean, Mirotic was 3 of 4 from three-point range. It seems to me like that would open up a lot for them.
Well, that's exactly what they need. You know, Giannis is the MVP of the league, or he's likely going to be the MVP of the league this year. But they won 60 games, both because of Giannis and because of the supporting cast stepping up every night. They were the most consistent group in the league. They had the best record in the NBA. And I expect them all to have a bounce-back night and have a great balance tonight.
And defensively, what needs to change for the Bucks in terms of slowing down the Celtics, who were really good offensively in Game 1?
I think if they get a little bit more physical, they let Boston run their stuff extremely well. They executed it. They kept their spacing, and Boston did a good job of reading it. You know, going back to what Chris said, playing the center on Giannis, it's not the first time it's happened. In the last series, after Game 1 or 2, Detroit changed and wound up playing Drummond against him, a more physical big guy that Giannis had to deal with as he came down into the lane. You know, interesting, Matt, Kyrie Irving during the regular season averaged, he played all 3 games against Milwaukee. He averaged 22 shots a game in those 3 games. He took 21 in game number 1. Interesting how it's right around that same number again for him.
Yeah, very effective.
Boston's defense has been unbelievable, and Al Horford is so valuable to them. For you stat nerds out there, he has a defensive rating of 93 through 5 games of the playoffs so far. That's Jaylen Brown. He and the Celtics looking for the road sweep tonight in Milwaukee.
Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Conference Semifinals in Milwaukee. Time to run it back, folks. For the second year in a row, the Bucks and the Celtics meeting in the postseason. Kyrie with the fadeaway. Boy, that thing brought rain. Good defense by Bledsoe, better offense by Kyrie with the left. Oh, they're looking good right now. Kyrie hits nothing but net. A 17-3 run for the Boston Celtics. Here's Mirotic making a little noise from deep. Draws the foul and one. That's Middleton with a little magic. A Mirotic from deep. Yes. Butter. And the Bucks on a 13-0 run. Mirotic with another deep 3. Moved it back to Middleton for 3. Got it. And the Bucks take the lead. Irving with the left hand. And he puts a silencer on 5-serve 4. Irving, nice hesitation, and the floater is pure. Boston back up by 3. There's Kyrie. Back to Al Horford on that pick and pop, which continues to be extremely prolific. Giannis blocked by Horford. Oh, he sent it back. Joint lead Kyrie going all over. Drew is in the building tonight. And the Celtics up by 18 here in 5-serve 4. And Brown with a mismatch over Bledsoe. Oh, boy, he has really polished up his offense. Nice cut by Brown and slams it in over Giannis. And Brown stepped back and bottom for Jaylen Brown. A convincing win here today for the Boston Celtics to go up 1 to nothing. 4 players in double figures and outscore Milwaukee 60-40 in the second half.
This is the most exciting time of the year, and this is the time you really get to show why, you go through the ups and downs of the regular season. This is all worth it. So I want to take it 1 game at a time, come back here on Tuesday, I believe, and go back at it with them.
The Giannis rules were in effect in Game 1. Giannis Antetokounmpo's Bucks were outscored by 24 points when he was on the floor. Time to bounce back tonight on the home floor. The Celtics hit the Bucks with their most lopsided loss of the entire season in Game 1, dominating on both ends in a 22-point win, their 11th in the past 13 games going back to the regular season. Later on, referees will take the floor at Oracle. The Rockets and Warriors will be there too, but the refs are getting all the attention the last 48 hours after a disputed no call late in the Warriors' Game 1 win. Hey everybody, from the world headquarters of NBA TV, this is Game Time, ahead of a pair of playoff Game 2s, and if we need a play drawn up per chance tonight, we are in good stead with the czar, Mike Fratello, and Frank Vogel back on set with us. And Coach, we're going to take a brief time out because the czar specifically asked for his own time at the top of the show.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that the book Giannis's Rules will sell as many as the Jordan Rule.
Not quite as catchy, but...
No. But I want to take a second to just congratulate David Griffin, who took the job in New Orleans, and we just will miss him tremendously. He did an outstanding job when he was here, and I wish him the best.
You didn't have his number? I mean, you could have texted
I have
him,
his
right?
number. I have.
Okay.
He won't answer me, though. But having said that, another Jersey product. Okay, welcome Coach Vogel to the crew here.
Thank you, Coach. It's an honor to work aside a legend here, the czar.
This guy did a really good job coaching his teams.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's it? Are you done?
That's it. You said I had 10 seconds.
Anything else you'd like?
You said I had 10
seconds. Well, you asked
seconds.
for 10 seconds. I think you took 30 or 45, but that's okay.
That's right. I'm good.
Are we good? Can we move on?
And somebody else said they like your tie. I didn't say that, but somebody else did.
That was Coach
me.
Vogel.
I know.
He's got a nice tie.
That was Coach Vogel. It was very nice of him. It's working out well.
There you go.
We'll see if Czar makes it through the end of the night. We'll start in Milwaukee, where the Bucks will try to give the Celtics their first loss of the postseason. Boston is the last unbeaten left, leading all playoff teams in three-point shooting and defensive rating so far, and tied with the Raptors for fewest points allowed. Brad Stevens says today he's enjoying the fruits of veteran leadership.
Well, I don't think you can overstate that. Those guys have been there, done that for a long time. And even though Gordon hasn't played as many playoff games, he's still always been really good on the road. I mean, Kyrie's obviously, been there, done at the highest level of the NBA over and over and over. But, I think that, again, you learn from some of the things you did last year from just what's coming and being able to stay in the moment and making sure you're just focused on what's next.
Well, guys, it was easy to be skeptical of some of those defensive numbers from the first round against an Indiana team that isn't particularly explosive without Victor Oladipo. But Boston's D was clearly ready to move up in class in Game 1, especially when it came to walling off Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is the linchpin of one of the best offenses in the league.
Well, I know that we heard over and over again how many people they sent at Giannis, but it starts with one guy willing to take the challenge, and that was Al Horford, who really stepped up and did a yeoman's job on him in trying to keep him in front of him. All right? But they wound up in the end risking the three-point line, daring Giannis to kick it out to teammates. He took the challenge on us and tried to beat 2 and 3 people at a time. But unfortunately, Horford doing his outstanding job with the help they got from the other players really caused them a lot of problems.
And the Bucks, one of the most prolific three-point shooting teams in the league, were 13 of 39, which is not a terrible number, but it's maybe not good enough. And these two things go hand in hand, right? You got to have Giannis producing in the paint for those shooters to do their damage out on the perimeter.
They do it, and this is the approach with Mike Budenholzer. And I faced him in the playoffs a couple times when I was in Indiana, and they were always leading the league in three-point field goal attempts. Okay, but it's an outside-in approach with their offensive system. Okay, they shoot the three to give space to drivers. Okay, back then for me it was Jeff Teague getting in the lane and creating havoc. But Giannis is an MVP candidate because of the three-point shooting support system they put around him. So, you know, you definitely have to do what Boston did. They executed a defensive masterpiece in terms of showing him a crowd every time he ducked his head and tried to get into the lane, and they're up 1-0 as a result.
Meanwhile, offensively, Boston was really good. They haven't always been a great offensive team this season. Playoff Kyrie is apparently a thing now, and he had 26-7 boards, tied his postseason career high with 11 assists. In fact, it's just the fourth time in his playoff career he's had double-digit assists.
Yeah, well, their whole team played with a great pace and rhythm offensively. And, you know, they played with a create for each other type of mindset with 25 assists, 11 turnovers. And, you know, they really, while they were executing their defensive game plan, they controlled the game with good offense. Because if you get into bad offensive possessions against the Bucks, they start running, Giannis gets in the open court, the threes, the transition threes start raining, and then you're in trouble.
Well, you touched on Al Horford, who was so good on both ends of the floor. You know, he doesn't get a lot of attention. He's a fairly quiet guy, but obviously a great team player. How valuable is he to this Boston team, no matter how far it ends up going?
That's hard to really put in terms of putting it on a scale, because
I bet his agent could.
Yeah, I bet he really could, particularly if his contract was about ready to be discussed. This guy opens up the floor for them because of his ability to knock down jump shots from the top of the circle, not afraid to go down the low post area where it's very physical. And then he takes the challenge of guarding. And what a great sequence that was. Not one block, but two blocks on the same play for Al Horford against Giannis. And he's a leader. They respect him because he just goes out there, as you said, not a real vocal, loud guy, but he gets the job done every night, and they respect him for that.
Boston also got 19 points out of Jaylen Brown, who hit 3 out of his 7 three-point attempts. And you guys know, over the course of the season, he was kind of caught in that log jam of wings they have in Boston. How many minutes is he going to get? What's his role going to be? But if they get this Jaylen Brown moving forward, the Celtics are going to be really tough to beat.
Right, but what makes Boston special? And now Horford stepping up. And two nights later, it may be Gordon Hayward and Marcus Morris. You just don't know who's gonna hit you. They've got talent at you know, a number of different positions, and you know, the versatility is what makes them great.
This is kind of why I've been sticking with Boston over the course of the season to come out of the East, even at times when they clearly didn't look like that sort of team. But Coach touched on it. Their depth makes them really dangerous.
Yeah, and Frank, tell me if you agree with this or not. Jaylen Brown looks like he has an improved offensive game right now in the playoffs. So it's hard for me to pinpoint what I'm trying to say, but he's a different offensive player than he was earlier in the year.
No, there's no doubt. They weren't just you know, weak side threes that he was getting in this, or drives in transition. He had a couple of step back threes. He had a great up and under move and a turnaround jump shot at the free throw line. You know, he's growing. You know, they're developing their young players at a great rate in Boston. Brad Stevens is doing a great job with their group, and you know, he's definitely growing and looks better than ever right now.
Maybe at some point Gordon Hayward gets back to Western Conference All-Star Gordon Hayward, but in the meantime, he's a pretty good option coming off their bench.
What makes him so good is he understands how the offense is supposed to be run. They give him a weak side screen. He comes off that screen. He's got the defender on his back. That defender doesn't get back in front of him again. There's an example. Defender caught behind. Now he can make a decision. Attack that guy stepping up. Shoot the little floater in the lane, which he's so good at making. He runs the offense the way Brad Stevens expects it to be run and takes advantage of how the defense is trying to play them.
Boston is off to its first 5-0 postseason start since 1987, and you'll recall that team won the Eastern Conference and lost to the finals to the LA Lakers. They'd take that. Reaching the finals, that would be good. They would take that.
Give them a shot.
All right, more coming up here. Chances are you've learned a lot about landing zones over the past couple of days. When we come back, we'll learn how all the officiating chatter figures to influence Game 2 for the Rockets and Warriors later tonight.